So the other day, I got an inbox from a good friend of mine, somebody that I've been knowing for a long time, and he was explaining how him and his son was having situations to where they wasn't on speaking terms. His son wasn't calling him, his son wasn't reaching out to him, and when I asked a few questions, I come to find out that the relationship had kind of broken down. Now I can recall them, man, back in the day when we were young. We all played on the same softball team, whatever. Me and my good buddy. And I remember he always had his son with him. And he couldn't have been more than about maybe 4, 5, 6 years old running around the park. But he was a very quiet kid, very wise, very intelligent, very handsome kid. And I just remember just throughout the years, the bond and the relationship they had. Wherever my partner was, he had his son with him. And so throughout the years, we've always kept in touch, and I think his son, he's beginning to play basketball. I kind of followed him a little bit, came up for an AAU, tried in Atlanta, and, hadn't seen him in a while, and he had kind of grown up a little bit. However, the inbox that I received from him was very disturbing. And I told him that he wasn't alone. And what I'm talking about is the strange and just the ironic culture of children not reaching out to their fathers. Children not picking up phone calls. Hell, sometimes children even got their own father blocked. Not checking on him on his birthdays, not acknowledging him on Father's Day, don't come around on holidays. Sometimes, some good women will encourage the child, like, what's going on with you and your pop? Why don't you reach out to your father? But I told him when he called me, I said, man, shoot me straight. Don't bullshit me. Tell me the truth. What have you done on your behalf? As I've told many people many a times, what I had to do becoming an older father at 44, it made me realize some of the mistakes that I made as a younger father with my older children, which then it motivated me to reach out to them and to apologize for all the mistakes that I made as a young father. Some of the mistakes that I made that they did not deserve, some of the treatment that was uncalled for, the way that I dealt with them, sometimes in hostility. And I think it was no thinking to it. It affected them all the way up to their adult years. However, when I first started going through this, I thought I was the only father going through this. I just did not understand. And I always use my son Quentin for an example because me and him had a very close walk through high school, his childhood, all the way up into college. And I can specifically remember when we took his official visit to the college that he was going to be attending, the coach was telling us that, hey, parents, don't get upset. Sometimes the kids get to school, they're finding themselves, they're on the campus a lot, they party a lot, they dealing with studies, they dealing with, getting to practice. Don't take it personal if they do not call, but this is a trend. And I'm sitting there thinking to myself, now my boy. Yes, my boy. As time went on, the calls became fewer. And when I did get him on the phone, the conversation became shorter until the calls became to a complete stop. And it bothered me for a long time because I just didn't understand why the communication was cut off like that, why our interaction had became null and void. And I just racked my mind to try to figure out why is my son distancing himself from me. And also went through this same thing with all 3 of my daughters who are now of adult age. And sometimes, I was the problem not understanding what they were feeling because I was insensitive to what they wanted to talk about. Because sometimes as parents, we can take on the stance that I'm mom, I'm dad, you do what I say, don't ask as I do, don't question anything that I do. Now, I'm not necessarily saying that was my total position as a parent, but I did embody some of those traits. And when the child feel like they can't talk to you, sometimes they will distance themselves. But when I would talk to my daughters, there was a lot of anger, there was a lot of strife, there was a lot of miscommunication. And I told them, listen, if we can't love each other genuinely, then we just don't have to deal with each other at all. And I was serious about that. And that's my creed as far as life. I'm not going to be in a space where I'm not valued. And I told my daughters, because I went through this with all of them, I said, listen, the only way we're going to come back together is going to be by death or the birth of a child. Ironically, my oldest daughter gave me a call after about maybe a 2-year hiatus. We hadn't talked. Hey, Dad, you're about to be a grandfather. I'm like, that's what's up, and we moved forward and we began to build a relationship, as well as her youngest sister and my youngest daughter before the baby girl. There's been times where we've been in and out and up and down. And this is just a relationship status of many fathers with their children nowadays. However, when I reached out to a lot of my good buddies, and we would just have conversations and we get up on parenting and we talk about things going on with our children, I came to find out a very disturbing reality is that I wasn't the only one that was going through this. And so we would conversate and speak amongst ourselves and try to figure out what is it about our children where they resent us, they repel us, they're disgusted with our very existence. And I think all my guys have done the work, and that's my go-to. That's my 3 powerful words: do the work. We all have work to do in our personal spaces, mental spaces, spiritual spaces, physical spaces, habits. We must learn to do the work. And I knew that I was doing the work to become a better man, to become a better father. However, relationships remain turbulent. No more in any area where it's more turbulent than it was with my oldest son. I could recall back as a young father having to have a lot of battles, which I had to battle the court. I had to battle his mother. There was a lot of things that were put on the table that nowadays somebody's not going to acknowledge that these things even happen, but I can recall these things. And so while a lot of times while men try to figure out what is it about what they have done, the child is totally crucifying us and we feel devalued of our children. And I told him, don't fret not. So what took place was I had the opportunity to talk to his son and give him a different perspective, because there's an old African proverb: as long as the hunter tells the story, the lion gets no glory. And I said all that to say this, is that when I went and did some research, the Pew Research Institution said that 44% of black fathers live apart from their child, as opposed to 21% of white males. And then Quora.com explained and came up with a stark number saying 75% of black children are in fatherless households. Years prior was 67%, but the number continues to rise. I saw titles saying, why do fathers abandon their children? My daddy said no. I seen a lot of titles that were negative as far as the narrative of black fathers that were completely not true. There's a conversation that's not being had in our community. Well, not just our community. I can say this for many fathers. There's a conversation that's not being had to where children are misguided, children are lied to about the truth about their father, the truth about the interaction with the mother. And we all know, as a man, if you're sitting here listening to me and this is your reality, you and I both know damn well there's nothing more powerful than the influence of a mother's word. That is a complete lie. These things don't show up on Google. These things didn't show up in Quora. These things didn't show up in the Pew Institute research, the Washington National. I did a little research with the numbers and they all pretty much line up pretty much the same. But I'm here to tell people that narrative of deadbeat father or black men don't want to raise their children is complete bullshit and it's false. A lot of men are driven out of relationships with their children. A lot of men are made to have to spend money to go through the court system just to see their children. But we're supposed to be adults. Some men just say to hell with it and they walk away because they don't want to deal with the stress. With me and my oldest son, we hit strides where we were good. But then we would have conversations where I would reveal some things and we're back at square one because he simply do not know the truth. So why am I correlating this to the Imitation of Life? Now, anybody knows, if you've ever seen that movie and if you've ever sat and watched it with your mother, as I did with mine, we all know by the end of the movie, everybody had tears in their eyes and Kleenex and sniffling and stuff like that, because the Imitation of Life is a classic. One that I can watch to this day and still get emotional about. And for those of you who are unfamiliar, because I don't know many people that are not, this was a story of a young lady who was black, but in them days, people considered that she could pass, meaning that she was so light and bright that she could almost pass for white. But she had a mama. Her mama was big. Her mama was dark and black and might have been considered ugly in those days and times. But as she got older, she wanted to align herself with the white side of society. She wanted to date the white guys. She wanted to hang out with the white groups. She wanted to go to sock hops. That's what they used to call them, the sock hop dances. But when her mother came around to acknowledge that she was her mother, she was embarrassed. She was ashamed. She was angry. There were quite some times, I believe there was a scene in the movie where she was dating this young white boy, and then he found out and he was like, "You're a nigger." He found out that her mother was black and it broke her heart, and she went back and cussed her mother out. And all throughout the movie, the mother just loved her gently. She never got angry with her. She loved her in compassion. She gave her grace. She gave her peace. She gave her forgiveness. And the daughter rejected her for no legitimate reason. But to other people, the reason could have been different. And as we all know how the movie ends, the mother dies. And she realizes the biggest mistakes that she had been making her whole life, in the way she treated her mother, the way she denied her mother, the way she shunned her mother. And not one time did her mother ever stop loving her. And she showed up at the funeral, crying over the casket. "Mama, I'm sorry. And you know what's so heartbreaking about that? Because I see many imitation of life cases over and over and over again where the children never knew the truth. My ex of 14 years back in St. Louis, on the day her father passed, I picked her up from work. She got the word that he was going. He was dealing with cancer. And I can remember the hurt, the pain, the way she cried in the car. And she always told me about she had two older brothers that lived kind of up north. I think they were in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. And her father had always tried to reach out and plead with them and tell them how much he loved them. You know, these were two young men, I guess, from a prior marriage or relationship. But he never denied those boys. He never denied their existence. But the mother got in the way, intercepted the letters, intercepted whatever money he might have been sending, things he tried to do. She always got in the way. Now, understand this. This is not a demonization of mothers, because we know a lot of mothers are really actually trying to reach out to the father to help the father have a better relationship with the children. Don't even put the father on child support. But that ain't what I'm talking about. I'm talking about how one individual can get in the way and destroy a relationship for years to make that child reject that father, shun that father, hate that father, regret that father, be embarrassed with that father, and never even know the truth. And by the time the father gets a chance to even meet the child to try to build a relationship, the influence of lies have already taken place and been embedded in the heart and the mind of that child. Well, he ain't really trying to hear what that man has to say. But that day, when I had to take my ex and stand over her father to take his last breath, and this is what broke my heart. The two boys walked in right after he passed. Now that was a scene that I will never forget. And they were there to come in to make peace. But why wait till your father's on his deathbed to make peace when you can have that conversation with your father today? You know where your father is at. He is not distant. And I'm speaking to those of you who've been carrying anger in your heart for father for years, and you never had the conversation with the man. You never asked any questions. You only got one side of the story. And I have a family member that actually is dealing with that reality. And I saw them war. I saw him and my uncle war. I saw him and my uncle, never really hit that stride. And then when he transitioned, a whole lot came out in the wash. And there was a lot of anger that set in. And there's a lot of children right now today. You have the opportunity while your father's alive to give him his flowers. At least give him the opportunity to say, hey, I'm sorry, forgive me. I'm not saying fathers are perfect. I'm not saying that your particular situation, your father did right by you. But at the end of the day, you don't want to be that one crying over a casket on the day of. You don't want to be that one that visits the cemetery years later, being an elderly man yourself, thinking that if you was just in this same peace of mind, if I could have just did things differently, I would have heard my father out. I would have allowed him to at least live this world in peace, knowing that, you know what? We had a lot going on when we was young. I don't appreciate you abandoning me. If that was the case, which 9 times out of 10, it's not. But just to say, I forgive you. We all remember that show that used to come on. I think it was VH1 or whatever it is. I can't think. It was either VH1 or one of those channels. And the young man was talking to his father about everything he had did to him. He was upset at him. He was mad at him. But he was crying. And he said, but I still love you. And everybody remember when the man went, ah, right? A lot of people laughed, right? But I didn't, because I felt the pain. I felt the decompression of all the things that man had been holding, and for his son to still give him a chance to say he forgive him. It all came out. It all comes out. Do not beat yourself up because your children are not answering your calls. Do not beat yourself up if they don't reach out to you or check on you. Do like the mother did in the Imitation of Life and continue to love on them anyway. Because it's no longer your burden. It's no longer your burden to tote. It's no longer your weight to carry. And for those of you who know you've done wrong by your child, and you've reached out to your child, and you ask your child for forgiveness, and you tried to make it right and do the right thing while you can, once you do the best that you can do and all that you can do, you lay it to rest. And I tell my children all the time, listen, I have no fear of losing you. Now, a lot of people say that's harsh. Think about what I'm saying. I have no fear of losing any child. And I'm not talking to a physical death. I'm just simply saying that my children choose not to deal with me for whatever reason. We ain't communicated. We ain't talked. I don't know what they upset about. I'm moving on with my life. Now, I'm not saying all my children, me and all my children are in the same situation, because I mean, there's 7 of them, right? And every one of them are different. Every last one of them have their uniqueness. But they have shunned me at times. They have rejected me. They have hurt me. But one thing about value, when you understand value, because I value my children, I understand how to love them the correct way. They're children. They haven't been here longer to understand certain emotions that they can't articulate, certain feelings that they don't know how to express. And we all know that our children, when they hit their 20s, they think they know more about life than we do. I've had all my children come and tell me, hey, man, Dad, you really don't know what you know, and you should have taught me this, and you should have taught me that. And it absolutely blew my mind. But it's okay. But I know I'm not the only man alone that's going through it. So continue to love on them. Continue to show compassion, peace, and patience. Because they're going to need you one day. And they're going to spend the block. Hopefully they spend it while you're still alive. They're going to spend the block. Because nobody's really going to live through this life with a mystery that's taunting them. Do you understand me? And there's a whole lot that I could say about this subject, but I don't want to go too deep about it. I always try to keep things down to 15 minutes. I'm hitting the 17-minute mark. But if you haven't seen The Imitation of Life, for you young people, you got an issue with your father, go watch the movie Imitation of Life. Don't let that be you. I don't care if I got a situation with a family member going on, people that I value, I'm going to make sure I make it right. And I know I've been saying this a lot lately because life has been really opening my eyes. My younger cousin back in St. Louis just had a stroke. When his mother reached out to me, I was absolutely floored. Like, how could this happen to this dude? That's why I don't take life for a joke. I don't take life for granted. I'm not finna walk around with hate and anger in my heart towards nobody. And I forgive everybody. I forgive my son's mother. I ain't got no issue. I ain't got no beef. I forgive all my children's mothers, especially those who threw me in the system. I forgive them. Because it's been a long trauma bond. A very long trauma bond, to the point where I never would legally marry, because being vulnerable like that in the system, I never thought that would happen to me. But after I forgave them, I forgave myself. Because carrying on to that trauma bond, it triggered me to make a lot of mistakes in a lot of relationships. I ain't finna sit up and tell you that I couldn't have been married years ago. I met great women, a lot of great women. That trauma bond, not being healed, not being wholesome, but I did the work. So at the end of the day, let me tell my children right here, right now, because I don't think they really, I don't know if they watch the show or not. Some shows they do, some shows they don't. But I value you all enough to love you the right way, the correct way. And I encourage you, for anybody that may be watching this, whether you have an aunt against your own father or your children, I encourage you to do the same thing. Because listen, ladies and gentlemen, we living on borrowed time. Ain't nobody guaranteed tomorrow. On your wellest day, you good enough to die. We don't even know what's going to happen tomorrow. We don't know what's going to happen 2 or 3 years from now. But one thing that we all know, we are going to transition. And I just want to make the best of my days while I'm here. But the one thing about it is, fathers, we must begin to value our fathers. Fathers are important. I'm not telling anybody not to feel a certain type of way who went through some stuff with their father or their father abandoned them. I ain't even talking about that. That's not a father. That's a coward. But even at some point, a coward will muster bravery at some point. But as for myself, I'm going to make every day count. And I'm going to love hard. Like this shirt says, drink water, love hard, fight racism. I'm going to love on those that I value so hard. But I'm not mad at my children. And let me stop making it seem so dark. Our relationships are great, right? I'm not mad at them. I'm not holding anything against them. We are okay. But this is a real reality. Because I don't know not one black man right now who can honestly say that he hears from his children often or that they check on him. This is the place where we bring it sexy back to the everyday hardworking men and women who impact your life within close proximity. We want to rise above this madness, which is black culture. And if you have not got your copy today, Empowering the Perfect You, Self-Improvement Tips for Black Men in the Era of Rejected Masculinity. Get that? Rejected masculinity. What the man say? I am the stone that the builder refused. Or Bob Marley say, the stone that the builder refused will always be the head cornerstone. Brothers, I want to tell you that you are great. And just men in general, all fathers of all ethnicities, I want to just tell you that you are great. Continue to be great men. Continue to be stand-up men. And continue to be the best that you could be. And also do the work. Do the work. Do the work. Kill your ego. Kill your pride. Kill your narcissism. Do the work. All right? And the one thing that I always have to say before I get up out of here. I mean, there's really a lot I really want to eat more on this subject. I really do. I might have to do a B part to this. But I know what a lot of my brothers are going to. Hang in there, brothers. Hang in there. If she lets you see that child, I don't give a damn if it's 10 minutes a week. Take advantage of that 10 minutes. If she lets you FaceTime the child, take advantage of FaceTime that child. We want to corner these things as much as possible. All right? I just had to say that. But listen, remember, man, you know what I'm saying? The one thing that you should never forget is to think that you have time. Until the next time, peace.